What's up, guys? Meowing, and I'm back with another video today. And it's the month of March, and there was a podcast I was supposed to be on sometime this month with a buddy of mine and one of his friends. Obviously, that's not happening now. I've mentioned it, I believe, in at least one or two of my previous videos. So that's not happening. So instead, I figured, why not talk about some podcasts that I think y'all would enjoy. Um, I'm going to cover three different ones, and I'm going to mention a few more towards the end of the video. And then I'm going to have all the links and stuff in the description below. But I figured I would take this time. I only have like 360 subs, but hey, try to help in any way I possibly can. So here we go. So the first one I want to talk about is Judson's Racing Network, which is done by Judson O'Neill. And I got to tell you something. This kid, and he's got to be in his mid-teens, I think. This kid is a fucking baller. Like, I mean, this kid is he's done so many interviews. He's come a long way, and his channel has only been going for a year or so. But the amount of guys that the amount of drivers that he's interviewed, freaking phenomenal. I mean, he's done a lot of short track driver interviews, but he's got. Let me just read off some of the people that he's got an interview. Okay, let me just read this off to you. AJ Allmendinger, Ryan Preece, Josh Bilicki, New Hampshire's own Derek Griffith, Gracie Trotter, Brett Holmes, Vermont's own Dylan Smith, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Alex LeBay, Kyle Weatherman, and Tommy Joe Martins. And in the early days of his channel, he got to interview guys like Ryan Vargas and Spencer Davis a little bit. Dude, this kid is putting in work, and it's not just him. He's got a little brother that's in this sort of thing too, which is really cool to see if you ask me. But what's even cooler than that, a couple months ago, and I'm not making this up, you can go look for yourself, but this is really freaking cool. He got to work with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Dirty Mo Media earlier this year. I forget which event it was for, the fact that he got to do that and the fact that they featured him on their Twitter account and all of that, that was fucking cool. And I got a lot of respect for this kid. This kid has done what he is doing right now is phenomenal. The work that he's putting in, and again, I've got a lot of respect for this kid. He's got about, almost 650 subs. A lot of his interviews and vids don't get really above 300 views. Some will get over 100 or so, but a good bit of them don't even get to that mark. So if I were you, go check his channel out. Go subscribe. Seriously, go check him out. He is phenomenal. He really is. Next one I want to talk about is Noah Talks NASCAR, which is done by Noah Cornelius. He has a YouTube channel. He posted one of his recent interviews on that channel, which he did with Noah Sweet and Noah Gregson, Noahception. But a lot of his stuff is over on places like Spotify and whatnot. I'll have the link to his link tree in the description below, with everything else. But he's a really badass fan. He does whatever he can to help. I saw something he tweeted out recently. Joe Graff Jr., his buddy and the guy he works with, Nate, he needed a ride to the airport to get down to Homestead for this past weekend's race, and Noah ended up giving him that ride to get there, which is really freaking cool. I didn't even know that, so that's badass. He works for, or he actually has a job with Off Axis Paint, which is a North Carolina-based helmet painting company. Noah's, sanded helmets, whatever, and they do helmets for tons of different drivers. Hell, William Byron, winner of the Cup race this past weekend, Noah got to sand the helmet that he was wearing in that race car when he won. How badass is that? To see your work on the head of a winner like that. That is badass right there. Um, he's Noah's said numerous times he hopes to get into NASCAR in some way. Honestly, I think with the way his podcast is going, he's on the right track in that regard. and he's a huge Bo Wallace fan, and that's how I came to find out about him. I remember I was just scrolling through Twitter one day, and I saw this post that was getting blown up and whatever. Noah had posted, and I'm gonna try to you know convey this in the best way possible off of memory. So if I'm wrong in any sense, if he sees this, he can correct me. But if memory serves me right, there was a post where I think what happened was he had like a Bubba Wallace sticker on his car or something. And again, if I remember correctly, what happened was I think his dad like ripped it off and said some things, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but wasn't that all that great. Keep in mind last season, we had with everything going on with Bo Wallace, the Confederate flag getting banned, Black Lives Matter and all of that, um, and whatnot. And Noah posted about it, and it got a huge outpouring of support from the community, which is awesome to see. Just to see the community come together like that is badass. And he and Bo Wallace actually ended up reaching out to him, and Noah got a bunch of merch and stuff. He posted about it when he got it. Really cool to see. And then actually later on, Noah and his dad, they reconciled over that. They made amends, which is really cool to see as well. So, and Noah's even gotten to meet Bo Wallace in person. He actually got to go karting with him and a few others on his birthday earlier this year, which is really cool. So, he's had various drivers on on his podcast. He's had some other NASCAR YouTubers on his podcast. I swear, go check it out. This man emanates NASCAR fandom, and you know, sort of like with the next one I'm going to talk about, which is which is a podcast done by women, in the NASCAR community, NASCAR fan, female fans and whatnot, which is also really cool. To see a guy like Noah, African American, you know, with the podcast and the things that he's been able to do and the energy that he gives off on a near daily basis. He's just a really cool dude, and I'm proud to be following him on Twitter and to talk to him every now and again, and to see how he's grown over time. And I wish him nothing but the best in the future. And speaking of that next podcast, this is the third one that I want to cover, or talk about, is the Fast Labs podcast, which is run by Deb and Chrissy. Um, they also have a YouTube channel. They upload their podcast over on Buzzsprout, I believe it's called. But they will occasionally come on YouTube and do and stream and stuff. They did one a couple weeks back with a few other female NASCAR fans, which was really cool. I enjoyed watching that. Um, they're both badass NASCAR fans, and um, I have a lot of respect for both of them in terms of what they bring, and from the female side of it, because when it comes to NASCAR fans in the NASCAR community, if there's one thing that I've noticed a lot, is that female representation amongst fans, it's awesome to see, but it doesn't feel respected, in my personal opinion, or not respected enough. And um, I feel like like female fans in NASCAR are just as awesome as male ones, and they should be respected. Um, it's like people have all these different misconceptions, like, oh, you like a certain driver because of how they look, or this and that, and it's all bullshit. You know, NASCAR fans can be women just as much as they can be men, and there are some very badass NASCAR fans who are women out there. There are women in the industry, and that is really fucking awesome to see. And again, I have a lot of respect for both Deb and Chrissy for what they're doing with the podcast, for what they're bringing to the table, and what they're trying to do for women in NASCAR and for female fans. And I wish them nothing but success. I personally feel, again, like I said, that female representation in NASCAR among fans, and just in NASCAR in general, is something that I'd like to see more of. Yes, we've had Danica Patrick, in more recent years, and obviously we have a few female drivers in the pipeline, like, Haley Deegan, Natalie Decker, Gracie Trotter, and a couple of others. I'd like to see more of that. And, it's not all about, how they look or whatever. The talent's a big deal and whatnot, and that should be the focus with them, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of different things, but what it needs to be is female fans respect and more acceptance to them. Um, Really cool thing I want to mention with them is, well, this has to do with Chrissy actually. Her son Ronan actually got featured. Last year, Rutledge Wood was doing the whole "Hey Rut" campaign during pre-race and during the races. To show NASCAR fans at home, because a lot of the races weren't allowed to have fans because COVID. And he got featured with a few others during the pre-race of the summer Texas race. So that was really cool to see. She quote tweeted that, and that's the pin tweet on her account. And another thing I want to mention, and it sort of comes up, it's a cool thing, and then it sort of gets a little negative, and then it gets a little positive. When they started the podcast, not long after that, they actually brought on Joseph Lombard as a third co-host. When things came out regarding him, and this actually wasn't that long after that happened. I think they only recorded maybe a couple of episodes before this stuff came out. And when they let him go, they removed him from the podcast. After a little while, the aforementioned Noah Cornelius was brought on in Lombard's place, which is honestly, and I've said this to them, I feel like was a very, very awesome move to see. And he was with them for a good while, and then he's now branched off with his own podcast. So, it's nice, and they're both, succeeding. So that's awesome. That's awesome to see, Deb and Chrissy with Fast Labs, Noah with his own podcast, both of them succeeding in their own right, and that is really badass to see. So with that all being said, there's three other ones I want to mention real quick. Side Draft Podcast, Stock Car Spectacle, and the Garage Guys Fantasy Sports Podcast. All of this will all be linked in the description below. So I really suggest you check these guys out, guys and gals, I should say. And yeah, so thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please drop a like, subscribe, and go drop a like and subscribe to those channels and those, and their content and all of that. And I will see you all in the next video. Peace.